Hello, I'm Eulalia, also known as Happy Chinchilla. In this video, I want to give you an introduction to my new solo class, Drawn to Nature, where we will be exploring different ways to create our own and very personal symbolic paintings. Now, in this lesson that I'm showing you right now, I'm using watercolor paints, and I want to let you know that you don't need a lot of things to create. Having a couple of colors, some water, and brushes is enough to create something that speaks to you and has personal meaning. For my class for Drawn to Nature, we will be using mixed media and exploring different techniques on how to create and how to work with materials that speak to you personally. I'm kind of new at using watercolor paints, but I'm really loving how easy it is to mix the colors and create a texture just by adding a little bit more water or a little bit more color, more watercolor directly to your page when it's wet. I'm not a professional at watercolor, but I'm really enjoying it. And the way I'm liking it, the way I like working with it is something that I've learned from folk art, and that is that you let your brush do most of the work. The theme of this painting is home, and I started thinking what home meant to me. One of the things that home means is a place where I can grow, so that I am representing with all these flowers and all these blooming and growing plants. And I'm not using specific plants right here. And in the class, you will see that I do research and find out which plants are more associated with a specific theme with a specific theme. But here I'm going with my instincts and creating like really simple plants, and that also comes from the way I'm using my brush. As I told you, inspired by folk art, letting my brush do all the hard work. When I did research a tiny little bit which animals are associated with the idea of home, and even before I started looking at books and researching, I thought about a turtle and how a turtle has home wherever they are. And that is a great idea, to think of home as yourself, a place, a space, a liminal space where you feel at home within yourself. I don't think I'm explaining very well, but I think a turtle represents perfectly well the idea of home that I want to have right here in this painting. I decided to work with blues because I thought these are very calming colors, and I want this painting to feel calm. Even if it has a lot of different things, I want the general feeling to be calm. I decided to use a symmetrical composition where each of the sides is the same. Almost the same, because for me it's very, very difficult to create the same image on the other side. My brain has a lot of trouble trying to understand how to create that symmetry, but I'm doing my best, and there's no need to be perfect. For me, I know this is supposed to be symmetrical, and I'm not getting worried about if it really is symmetrical. While I'm painting, I'm trying to change the colors and trying to have a little bit of contrast. So some of the images that I have will be darker than others. And I think now I've let everything dry a little bit, and I'm going over some of the places that I want to be made darker. So I'm using the darkest of my blues. And because this is watercolor, it creates a really beautiful texture, and you can see some kind of translucency, and that is what makes me more excited about work with watercolors, and is to see those little differences, and how when you add a new color or even the same color that you had but you added a little bit more less watery, you get some contrast. I keep changing my brushes. I have, if I'm not mistaken, I'm using 3 different brushes, a smaller, a medium, and a bigger one, not too big, because I do want and I do enjoy to work with a smaller brush, because that means that I get more blooms and get more texture in my painting. I'm almost done working with the blues, and now you can see, now that everything is a little bit drier, that it's important to have that contrast. That way your eye really knows where to look. And I'm going to add a new layer to my flower, which originally I really thought it was going to be like my focus point, but with all the things that I've added, it's not as important as I first thought. And I think it's a great idea to let things happen and see how things change. Now, I'm using some acrylic paint right here, and these are metallics. This is if I'm not mistaken, this is a bronze color, and I'm adding details because I want to have a little bit of sparkle and shine. And of course, you could use, if you're following along with what I'm doing, you could use your metallic watercolors, and they will work great right here. But because I'm new to watercolors, I don't have metallic watercolors, so I'm using acrylic, which are my go-to. That's my go-to medium. That's my favorite medium. And you can add as little or as much details as you want. I think adding those, like the place where the flower meets with the leaf, adds a little bit of interest, and it looks really beautiful. I'm using an ink, an acrylic ink, and also a high flow acrylic, and you can use either of them. They're basically interchangeable. They're both acrylic paints. The texture changes a little bit, and the color also changes a little bit. I think that is why I decided to work with the 2 of them, but there's no need. You can use either of them. and they will be fine. You could also use any other metallic that you have. I think this would look really, really beautiful if you used a bronze color or silver. I think silver would have been a more appropriate because I think it might be more calming. But I also like this little contrast between the gold and the blue. So add as many or as little details as you want. I will keep telling you this in my class, and that is that this is your project. So basically, you make the rules. You decide what you like, how much details, how much paint do you want to add, how much colors, which colors do you want to add. In my class, I will give you an introduction to symbolism, to how to journal, to get to know which elements work better for you, which colors work best for what you're trying to achieve. So there's a little bit of introduction where I tell you all these basics. I also show you all the supplies that I am going to use, but you don't need to use them. You could, if you don't have a lot of different mixed media materials, you could work with a couple of them. And I think one thing that I really enjoyed when I was making the class was to give different ways or teach different ways to create the same thing. And that is something that I really personally love about working with mixed media. And that is that there's a lot of different ways to create the same thing. And you get different textures, and each of the supplies that you use helps get your story across. And now, after these little uh, last details, I will start adding more details using a colored pencil. Colored pencils work really great on top of watercolors. So I decided to get a couple of blues, a couple of blue colors, which will create a different type of mark on my page. And with them, I can add more detail and lighter details. You could also use any other material that you enjoy. For example, this is a great place to work with acrylic paint markers. I don't think, or maybe, but if you use uh, wax pastels or oil pastels, I think they might be a little bit too rough, too big, but maybe they could work. That's what I love about working with all of these materials, and that is that you get to play and explore and experiment and try things out and have fun creating things. So this is it. This is my painting is done. My symbolic painting of home is done. And I really hope you enjoy it and that you will join me for my new class drawn to nature. You can find all the info, the links, and everything below. I really hope you will join me. And if you create something inspired by this painting, I would love to see it. So tag me on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you share your work. I would absolutely love to see it. So that's it. Remember to have fun. Bye.